Going on, everybody, and welcome back to a circus. This slate is crazy. This is the Stokastic NHL strategy show, sponsored by BetMGM. I'm your host. You know me by now. It's Josh. Joining me as always, co-pilot Slim Cliffy. How are we doing today?
Not too bad, man. Just glad last night's slate is over with. It was a pretty big disaster for me last night. A really low scoring night. I think somebody in our Discord said, I don't play cash games, but somebody in our Discord said the cash line was 75 points. A week ago, Tage Thompson put up 70 by himself in a game. So it was a really weird night last night. No, I did not cash. It was, a pretty bad effort on my part in that regard. I think my best player was Matt Boldy, who put up like 20 points. As soon as Tim Stützle went down, I just stopped caring. He was in my lineup. That injury certainly didn't look good. Although good news on Cole Caulfield, he did travel with the team today. They play tomorrow on Wednesday Night Hockey. So it looks like Caulfield's going to be all right, even though he left the game yesterday. But Stützle, not good news on that. No, well, I guess we don't have any firm news, but it's not looking good. That's for sure.
Yep, I didn't do too great either. I'm in a little bit of cold stretch right now. It happens. Like I had a few week stretch where I was, cooking with gas. Now my gas is frozen.
You're getting cooked with gas.
Yeah. We got to real quick. Let's get to a $10 super chat from Mark Brute. Probably pronounced that wrong. I just wanted to say Brute. Thank you guys so much for the ongoing great content and comedy. You're welcome. Had two big wins this week. Took down the $4.20 max last Friday and second place on the $5 last night. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in. And that is excellent. That is a nice, that $5 tournament's great. It's gotten bigger today. First time it's grown, which is nice to see. It's filled every day. It's been out. So congrats to you. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. Congrats.
Yeah, I would just say, we appreciate the compliments and all that, but we're just here giving some plays that we like through the day. It's still up to the people watching to, click the players in the lineup and put their own money up. So give yourself some kudos there. You do most of the work. We're just here talking for an hour about hockey every day.
Yeah. I apparently forget what I say sometimes. I got called out in the Discord for a tout that I had no idea that I did yesterday. Sorry about that.
Well, I mean, it has been a busy stretch for us. A lot of hockey of late. So sometimes we went through this problem last year with the compressed schedule. Sometimes one day just bleeds into another. You forget who even played the night before. So those things happen. Well, we'll be right sometimes. We'll be wrong a lot. And we'll just hope to win some money between here and the end of the season.
Yeah, I will say I forgot that I touted Eric Brandstrom at min price. Ended up having 6 block shots, so worked out, I guess.
There you go.
We have a 12 gamer though. We probably should start talking about it. Before we do, give us a like and subscribe to keep up with all of our shows, DFS offers, giveaways, and much more. Once you subscribe, hit that notification button to get alerts when our shows go live. Don't forget, we're available in podcast form on the platform of your choice. Please smash that like button. I know a lot of you guys tune in and don't like to hit the like button. Helps us out so much. Please just hit that like button. I don't want to beg. But please. New York Islanders.
We'll beg.
Oh, we
don't
will.
worry about that. We're not above begging.
I will do some weird things for some likes. I won't say what they are yet. New York Islanders.
That was an awkward silence.
New York Islanders, 2.4 total. Heading into Boston, the Bruins have a 3.6 total. Apparently, Varlamov is probable. Linus Ullmark also probable. If it is I can't say his last name. Semyon V. If it is him, I have some interest here in Boston. They got to have a 3.6 total here. Not too much ownership on either of these two lines. They're going back to old Boston 1. Fully correlated. Very expensive. 23 and change here, but almost no ownership. If it's Sorokin, he has struggled a bit recently, but like that'd probably push me to MME a little bit, but it won't take much to get over the field.
Yeah, I think one of the beat writers said that they kind of want to give Sorokin almost like a little breather, a little rest. He had a few mediocre to bad starts in a row. Varlamov hasn't been awful, so it's a chance to keep Sorokin away from Boston, I guess, and just give him a little bit of reset. And that's fine. Goalies need that. Players need that sometimes. So probably will be Varlamov. I'll just say, like, I don't have any interest in the Islanders here tonight. Certainly not in like 1 to 3 lineups. Obviously, if you're playing in that $5 150 or the $15 or whatever, if you're playing a ton of lineups, then maybe you start considering them. But 1 to 3, I don't have any. We don't even know who's playing for the Islanders because Anthony Beauvillier and Kyle Palmieri are effectively game time decisions, and we don't know exactly what the lineup's going to look like. Like beat writers are just guessing that it's going to be Lee, Barzal, and Wallstrom, which in a nutshell seems like a line that I would want to use, but not going up against the Patrice Bergeron Boston one at home. That's certainly not a spot I'm going to use them. So I don't have any real interest in the Islanders here. Boston is pretty interesting because, as you mentioned, not a whole lot of ownership on them. I'm going to bring up our top stacks tool here real quick. You can see Boston one right there. Bergeron, Pasternak, Marchand, nearly 19% top 2 stack percentage, only 2.2% ownership by our top stacks tool, our very wonderful top stacks tool. So no, people aren't really going to be playing them. Obviously, the cost is fairly prohibitive. What I'll mention is something that we've talked about a couple times this season because Pasternak's been playing a lot on the second line, at least at even strength, is that the Boston top line, I don't think it would really surprise anybody, scores way more when Pasternak is on the top line versus the second line. When he's there with them over the last 3 years, 4.3 goals per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. When he's there, when he's not on that line, it drops to 2.9. So their goal scoring goes up like 40 or 45%, math off the top of my head, when Pasternak is on that line, which is a massive increase. So, perfect correlation. The Islanders typically have a good penalty kill. The goaltending is probably saving them more than anything else. Boston one is perfectly fine to play here. And on a slate this large, there are, secondary low cost lines and low cost duo stacks and things like that you can go to. There are a couple $2,500 defensemen that are viable on DraftKings on today's slate. There are some fairly cheap lines across, all, the entire slate. Like we'll talk about Arizona. Arizona has cheap lines. I mean, Chicago has cheap lines. Columbus has a relatively cheap second line. There's a cheap third line in Los Angeles. Seattle isn't that super expensive if you go with some duos. Like there are places you can go. So I do kind of like the spot here for Boston. It's just that they're really super expensive, and I'm not sure I'll like the build when I get there. But when you look at lines like in that price range, it's basically them or Edmonton, right? We'll talk about Edmonton a little bit later. They're
We
will. So I do like Boston one. It's just the price is a lot, and it's one of those things that if Boston does get a lead, like if they get up 3-0 in the second period, they might not see a lot of ice time for the rest of the game. That's something that Boston does as well. So I have no issue playing them if you have a lineup that you can put together that you like with them. It's just they are really, really expensive, and it's just hard to fit them in. That's all.
Yeah. Agree with that sentiment. On the blue lines here, it's like probably just Charlie McAvoy if you're correlating. That's really expensive with Boston one, but you can make it work. Probably about it on either side, maybe like Sebastian Fiveho, maybe, but that's about it.
Yeah, with no Adam Pelech, I'll always, Scott Mayfield is a guy that will always be in play for me. I think he can definitely rack up the shot blocks up against Boston. I'll also mention Ryan Pulock on FanDuel. I think he's a little too expensive on DK. On FanDuel, I think he's only like 4,500, and I think he played 23 minutes last game without Pelech in the lineup. So don't mind him, but it's not a guy that I'd be like, he's a priority play today or anything like that.
Los Angeles Kings with a 3.4 total heading into Buffalo. The Sabres also have a 3.4. Phoenix Copley, Craig Anderson probable. Jeff Skinner still suspended. Casey Middlestat still up on that top line. I guess Victor Arvidsson's out. His wife is having a baby or something.
Yeah.
They said Magnus, but I'm assuming that meant weak daughter.
There was a Magnus Arvidsson that played for Ottawa, but I don't think he's been in the league for like 10 years now.
Yeah. So it looks like Gabriel Velarde is going to move up with Deneau and Moore.
Just something quick on that. LA Kings beat writer released a story right before we came on the air saying that they're going to put Jared Anderson-Dolan on the second line and leave the third line together with Velarde, Kempe, and Iafallo, it looks like.
Alrighty then.
Yeah.
Don't mind Jared Anderson-Dolan, honestly, though. Like, I don't know if I'm going to play him tonight, but, like, he's not, like, I don't know, Zebgumis Grinson.
He's not forward Mikey Anderson.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
I think he can hold his own up there. So, yeah, with that, I missed that story. Thank you for that. With Jared Anderson-Dolan moving up to the second line, it seems like this is a good spot to use Kings 1. On the Buffalo side, with Middlestat up there, I guess in a nutshell, like Buffalo 1's fine because they're fully correlated and the Kings struggle defensively on the penalty kill, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But that line takes a big hit when it's not Jeff Skinner and it's Casey Middlestat. So, like, I'm going to go to the lower owned 3.4 total here and go to the Kings side.
Yeah, you and I were talking just before the show about what to do in this game because 6.8 total between the two teams, that's a lot. You don't want to just like completely ignore it. At the same time, there is some differences, with the lines here. Obviously, Jared Anderson-Dolan moving up. He's not Victor Arvidsson. That line, it can still be fine, but it seems like it's one of those lines where the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. You know what I mean? Like you want all three of them together, especially with some of them with the power play, especially because this is a good power play spot for Los Angeles, and that Kings second unit has been the better unit all season long. But with Anderson-Dolan there, I think it takes a little bit of bite out of them. But honestly, I think it's fine to play for this reason, is that they didn't tweet out those line combinations. It was just in a story that one of their writers posted literally right before we came on the air. I'm wondering how many people are going to have that exact Moore, Deneau, Anderson-Dolan combination. You know what I mean? I think it's going to be pretty low. So I think that makes for a decent sneaky secondary stack, right? Because I don't think a lot of people are going to have them. Again, it's one of those things where I don't know if I'll get there in like single entry or 1 to 3, but if I'm playing 20 lineups or 150 or whatever it might be, that Kings 2 is probably going to come in pretty low owned in a 3.4 total. But it is the top line that I like here. That Kings top line has been scoring quite a bit since they got put together. Obviously, the shooting percentage is unsustainable, but it's nice to see Arthur Kaliev get more minutes. He has a 15-minute game since he got moved up. I know there's one game he only played like 11 minutes, but he still had 6 shots. He played 17 in their last game. So I do like the Kings top line here, especially where, they aren't coming in with that much ownership. Again, by our top stacks tool, coming in at 4 to 5%. I think that's perfectly fine, especially in a power play spot. The Buffalo, they both have bottom 10 penalty kills, but Buffalo's, in the bottom 10. So it is a good power play spot for the Kings top line. So I do like Kings 1 here. I'm not playing Buffalo 1. We just talked about Pasternak's impact with Boston. Jeff Skinner's kind of the same on the top line with Tage Thompson. Over the last 2 seasons, Tage Thompson has 330 minutes at 5-on-5 without Jeff Skinner. Goals for goes down 30%. Expected goals for goes from over 3 down to 2.1. They just work incredibly well together. And Casey Middlestat, he's just bad. Like, I don't know how else to say it. He doesn't have his expected goals for impacts are bad. He's not good at creating scoring chances. He's fine on the power play. So I guess because it is a good power play spot, you can go in that, that would be one justification for it. But I think without Skinner there, I really don't have interest in Buffalo 1. If anything, it would be dropping down to that Buffalo second line as a secondary stack, like Cousins and Quinn or Cousins and Paterka or something like that. But it's Kings 1 that I like most here.
Yeah. And just out of personal preference, if the Kings want to put Adrian Kempe on the top line instead of Kevin Fiala, just so we can call him the AK-47s, I would be fine with that. But I prefer Fiala up there. Let's move to the blue line. Drew Doughty appears he's going to be in tonight. He's 4,700. This is a pretty good spot for him, although he doesn't do too much with his 28 minutes of ice time. Sean Durzi, more expensive here. I think he's more in play if Doughty is in fact out. Matt Roy, okay, 3,900. On the Buffalo side, there isn't much really jumping off the page here. I guess like Dahlin in the nutshell is fine for the power play. Matthias Samuelson's fine for block shots, but he's a little expensive for my taste. Owen Power's peripherals haven't been great, so not too much that excites me on the Buffalo side.
Yeah, I'll mention Sean Walker just because if Doughty's out. Walker moved up to the top power play, and he's only 2,600 in the last game, so just keep an eye on that. Like Dahlin played 30 minutes in their last game, I think, when Jokiharju was injured. Like they didn't give anybody else any more minutes. They're like, you're Dahlin, you're just playing 30. So like if he plays a ton of minutes in a high total game, I think he's fine. But there's a couple other expensive defensemen later on in the slate that I prefer.
Yep. Anaheim Ducks with a 2.2 total heading into Toronto. The Maple Leafs have a 4.2 total. John Gibson, probable. Ilya Samsonov, confirmed. Ilya Samsonov, min price on FanDuel, by the way. He is almost maximum price on DraftKings, so big price disparity there. I'm going to kick it to you because one of my dogs just got his head stuck in the banister on the stairs, so I have to go let him out. I'll be right back if we talk about the Leafs for a second here.
Yeah, poor King Bacon Pie. I guess maybe he I guess he must have had something happen. I'll just bring up our lineup builder here very quickly. Lineup builder available for subscribers at Stokastic.com. You can check it out even if you're not a subscriber. It just won't have ownership and projections and everything like that. The stack projection for the top Toronto line is 49.3 points. That is patently absurd, really. It's one of those totals that you only see basically when Edmonton has their stacked top line in a good matchup. So obviously we're expecting a ton of points here. Michael Bunting, Austin Matthews, William Nylander, all their prices are less than half, or all their projections are twice their price, right? And that's typically a barometer of decent values when you can get over 2x on the projection compared to their price. Now, the thing is on last night's slate, like we had Ottawa 1 in double digits for ownership, and they came in way, way higher than that, especially in the low dollar contests. I think just off the top of my head, I think in the $3 3 max, Brady Tkachuk alone was 40% owned. Like, I know this is a 12-game slate. Yesterday was 6. Yeah, yesterday was 6 games. That makes a difference. But we have Austin Matthews projected at 17%. I could see him coming in at like 25% plus. Yeah. But even still, it's such a good matchup just because Anaheim is, they're one of the worst teams defensively, 5-on-5 on the penalty kill. It doesn't matter. Toronto's power play has struggled a bit without Morgan Rielly, but it seems like the shots are fine, the shot attempts are fine and all that. It seems like it's just a small sample shooting percentage thing, which, Toronto's first month was defined by small sample shooting percentage problems. So I'm not super concerned about that. Toronto 1, Toronto 2, Toronto power play, all very much in play here. If you're worried about ownership, maybe in smaller contests, maybe you're in a 100-man winner take all or something like that. Power play stacking is perfectly fine here in this matchup. It's really hard to get away from Toronto here. When I say that, though, it's like, aside from the Winnipeg Jets, is there any other team that can absolutely fall on their face against a bad team? Like Toronto lost to Arizona at home earlier this year. Like it's not impossible that it happens. So, whether you want to play him or not is up to you, but there aren't very many better spots that the Toronto Maple Leafs will be in the season. And, the top line's still under 20K on DraftKings. So, yeah, you have to love him. On the Anaheim side, I think they're fine. I think the top line, Troy Terry, Trevor Zegras, Adam Henrique, their numbers are still pretty good over their last 100 and so minutes, 2.8 expected goals for. They're all playing like 20 to 21 minutes, typically most nights. The Toronto top line has been giving up some chances defensively. It has been the goaltending that has saved them. So, I wouldn't forget about Anaheim if you're playing 20 or 150 or something like that. But obviously, this is all about Toronto 1. This is about as good a spot as it gets. If you fade them, hold on tight. It's going to be quite the night.
Yeah. And I hate the Leafs. I'll just say it. I hate the Leafs. I'm a hater. And the one thing going in my favor here, if I'm fading the Leafs, is it's probably going to be John Gibson in that. If any goalie on a poopers team can stand on his head, it's John Gibson. Now, can you rely on that? Absolutely not. But if you're going to get a Leafs team between the first and the second line, first of all, I agree with you. I think Matthews will be easily the highest owned Leaf, and it'll probably be 25-30% just because people love to one-off Matthews no matter what his ownership is, et cetera, et cetera. If you can tell me a quarter of this field is going to have a Leaf in their lineup on a 12-game slate, there's other 4 totals, there's other really big totals. To me personally, in 1 to 3, I'm probably going to fade him. Now, that's a wildly horrific scenario if they go off. You just have to hope on this big of a slate that there's going to be multiple paths to victory. Now, that's my rant on why I'm going to fade the Leafs. That being said, I think they're one of, if not the best plays of the night. And I think if you are worried about ownership, which is a legitimate concern on a night like this, you see it 24 teams and one of them's 20%. You add in Bunting on that top line stack. You add in Dennis Malgin on that second line stack, or you just full on power play stack. You know what I mean? Going Matthews, Nylander, Sandin, right? That's not going to be sneaky. It's not going to be different. I think if you want to add in Sandin, you add in Bunting, right? You have Matthews, Nylander, Bunting. Yeah, all 3 of those guys may come in double digits, but I would imagine that 3-man stack is going to be under 10%. So that's my rant on the Leafs. I can't stand one-offing Matthews, especially when it's going to be chalk. You have if he has a big game, there's going to be other people coming along for the ride. So try to avoid one-offing Matthews. You bring other guys along for the ride. If you're going to power play stack, I think you power play stack. But if you want to just go to the top line, I think leaving Bunting in, because this is a very good 5-on-5 matchup as well. The Ducks are just absolute trash defensively. They're back-to-back on the road. So, yeah, glad I got that out. I feel much lighter. I feel I could go for a jog. Let's move to the blue line. Rasmus Sandin coming in with pretty low ownership just because his price is above 4,000 now. I think that's a way to get different. Sandin was super popular when he was 2,600, 3,100. Now getting into that 4,100 range, that's kind of no man's land. It seems like a little bit too expensive for him, so adding him in could be a way to get different. If not, Justin Hull would probably be the guy. Mark Giordano's not really shooting the puck at 4,300. He's been blocking shots, like you mentioned in our Discord, but he hasn't been shooting. On the Ducks side, it's probably just going to be if you want to have Fowler, it's fine. But like you mentioned yesterday, he is pretty reliant on hitting the score sheet. So if you want some shot blocks, I guess Dmitry Kulikov or Simone Benoit would be the guys.
Yeah. The only guy I really wanted to mention was Benoit. He played 19 minutes again last night. I think he had 2 blocks and a shot. Obviously, we were looking for that one extra block from him. He didn't get it. He's in another pretty good spot to go rack up that block bonus. He loves throwing his body in front of shots, and he's probably going to get lots of opportunities to do so against the Leafs tonight.
Yeah, and I know I said I'm a Leafs hater, but shooting Mitch Marner is the best Mitch Marner. When he shoots the puck, I want to adopt him. When he doesn't shoot the puck, I want to shun him. Seattle Kraken, 2.8 total. Heading into Tampa Bay, the Lightning have a 3.6 total. Philip Grubauer confirmed. Andre Vasilevsky is probable. Looks like Tampa, Hagel, Point, Kucherov, then Stamkos, Paul, Killorn. Top line fully correlated. It's a broken record when talking about a team playing Seattle. Their 5-on-5 lines are pretty good defensively. Their goalies have been horrific. I don't think Eeli Tolvanen is going to be in the lineup. I know they claimed him. That's not really relevant at this point. For me, looking at Tampa's ownership, their top line is coming in a bit lower than the second line. Stamkos, just because, the second line is cheaper. But I think going to the top line for Tampa is a fine play. If they it's not the best matchup, and it's hard to rely on bad goaltending because any goaltender can have a great game in any matchup at any point. But I think Tampa 1 is a nice play tonight.
Yeah, I'll start with Tampa 1. I wrote them up in my picks article today. I'll just bring that up real quick. Free to read up on Stokastic.com. I did write up the Tampa Bay top line. Their problem has been shooting percentage, which is something that we just discussed with the Leafs. That was kind of the problem with Toronto through the first 5 weeks of the season, give or take, was the Matthews line shooting like 8% rather than 12% or 13% or something that we might expect from them. That's the problem that Tampa 1 has here. They're shooting under 8% as a line this year, which if you look at Nikita Kucherov's history, that's incredibly low for any line with Nikita Kucherov on it. If there's a cure for a low shooting percentage, it is the Seattle Kraken goaltending. 30th overall save percentage over the last month, 29th overall save percentage on the season. They were awful last year too. It's just something that hasn't improved. Seattle's, like you said, not a bad defensive team, but their goalies can easily let in like 4 goals on 27 shots or something like that, right? Like this is just a pretty good spot for that Tampa top line, considering how bad the Seattle goaltending has been. So I do like Tampa 1. They're one of my more favorite lines that aren't priced at like 23K or something like that today. I think, like you said, coming in reasonable ownership, 3 to 4% on DraftKings. I think they're even lower on FanDuel where they're relatively more expensive. Kucherov has been shooting a little bit less of late. He only has 14 shots in his last 5 games. But Braden Point's price is very reasonable at 6K. Hagel's not expensive. They're perfectly correlated. I really do like Tampa 1 here. Tampa 2, I think if it's a situation where I would probably do a power play stack rather than just full stack Tampa 2. Like there's just not enough. It's like 3,500, the difference between the two lines. And it's like, if Stamkos and Kucherov are relatively equal, would you rather save 3,500 and play Nick Paul and Alex Killorn, or pay the extra 3,500 for Hagel and Point on the top power play unit? That's just the way I look at it. So I do like Tampa 1 coming in with pretty good projection as a line here. Obviously a great matchup against the Seattle goaltending. Tampa 1's probably one of my favorite. I think they're I had them number 4 on my priority list. So I really do like Tampa here. Tonight. On the Seattle side, that second line, the McCann, Beniers, Eberle line, has been pretty good. Their last 100-ish minutes together, 2.8 expected goals for, 1.9 expected goals against. There's that defense that you were talking about. 6.5 goals scored. Now that's shooting over 20%. But, Matty Beniers is starting to shoot more, which was a problem early in the season. Jordan Eberle has been shooting more over the last month compared to the first month of the season. So, it's a tough matchup going into Tampa, but it is one of those lines that I would definitely keep an eye on or factor in if I was playing a ton of lineups here tonight.
Yeah, and Seattle with a 2.8 road total is not nothing. That's a big total, especially for them. So yeah, I do like that call on Seattle too. Let's move to the blue line here. Vinny Dunn. It's honestly not the worst power play spot for Seattle, so I don't mind Vinny Dunn at 4,500. Carson Soucy, 2,600. Adam Larson, if you want to. Adam Larson, 4,100. It's a bit pricey for my taste for him. If he was in the mid threes, I'd be more interested in that. I'd probably just full on punt with Soucy or, it's always the worst, putting in Soucy and then Will Borgen goes off, and then you put in Borgen and then Cal Fleury goes off. You put in Fleury and then Soucy goes off, but Soucy.
I'll just mention Justin Schultz. The reason I say that is because Seattle's kind of like Los Angeles, where their quote second power play unit has been better this season than the top power play unit. So I don't mind Justin Schultz even as a one-off, because he's cheap enough where, even if Seattle only gets a couple goals, if he factors into one of them, he could probably pay off his value. So I don't mind Schultz here tonight. Hedman's a weird one because the power play has been legitimately worse with him this year than with Sergachev. They were going back and forth between the two of them for a while. They're generating more shot attempts, more shots, more goals with Sergachev. So I don't think you have to use Hedman, but even at that price, like considering what he's done over the last few years, if they start turning it around over the next 50 games, his price is going to go up like 1,500, right? So I think Hedman's perfectly fine.
Yep, agree there. As we mentioned off the top, we're sponsored by BetMGM. We can get you a BetMGM risk-free bet up to $1,000 and 2 months of Stokastic Plus Platinum for free. All you got to do, the most important part, click the link in the description below. If you don't have a Stokastic membership, you can create one for free or log in if you already have one. Then follow the steps with BetMGM. You know what you have to do. You create an account. You deposit at least $10 if you want your risk-free bet to be $10. That is the minimum. Do 10 up to 1,000. You make your first paid bet. Your bet must settle. Then you'll receive an email from BetMGM, not Stokastic. So if you're not seeing it, check your junk folders with instructions for redeeming your 2 free months Stokastic Plus Platinum. The most important thing, click that link in the description. It will take you step by step. Columbus, 2.5 total. Heading into Florida, the Panthers have a 4 total. Merzlikins probable. Sergei Bobrovsky is confirmed. We were talking about this game a little bit as well before the show. You said in the last game, Panthers went to Verhaeghe, Barkov, Tkachuk for a good portion of the game. They didn't have a morning skate, so this is one of those games we're going to have to wait till warm-ups, and it's an important one because they have a 4 total, and they're not getting much ownership, which seems like a logical pivot off the Maple Leafs. So what are you doing with the Panthers?
Yeah, this is one where I think Verhaeghe, Barkov, and Reinhart is a perfectly fine line to play, right? You get Reinhart on the top power play unit with Barkov. So, you get 2 out of the 3 guys on the top power play unit. Verhaeghe and Barkov have long been very good together. There's a few seasons now where they've been excellent together. The one issue that I'm having with Reinhart on the wing is like he's having some pretty big shooting percentage problems this season, or at least has for most of the season, and it's leaked onto that line. Like they're generating a lot when Reinhart and Barkov are on the ice together. They're just not scoring a lot. Now you got to assume that turns around. They won't shoot 4% of 5-on-5 for the rest of the season. But if they do have Verhaeghe, Barkov, and Tkachuk, yes, that's a pretty expensive line to put together. I think off the top of my head, it's around 22,000, so less than Edmonton and Boston, but more expensive than most of the rest. But Barkov, Tkachuk, and Verhaeghe have been absolutely lights out this season. They have over 100 minutes together. Their expected goals are above 5. Their actual goals are above 5. You would get 2 out of 3 again on the top power play unit. The power play's been fine actually with Montour and Ekblad both there, as long as Barkov's been there. He's obviously a difference maker on that line. Now, Columbus's penalty kill typically not awful, but their goaltending has definitely let them down this season. Whether it's been Merzlikins or Korpisalo, it hasn't really mattered. So if they do have Verhaeghe, Barkov, Tkachuk, that's a line I would have a ton of interest in. If it's Reinhart instead, I think they're still playable, especially where you, like you said, not coming in with much ownership, coming at about 4% owned. I think they're still fine, but I would really like to see Tkachuk on that top line. On the Columbus side, it's kind of interesting, right? Florida's not like an elite defensive team or anything like that. They do take a ton of penalties, 3.9 times shorthanded per game, and the Columbus power play has been much, much better over the last 5 weeks or so. The Gaudreau, Jenner, and Nyquist line has been good together. 2.9 expected goals for in 150 minutes, 3.4 actual goals for. So I think that Columbus top line would be another one of those lines that I would definitely keep in my mix if I was playing a lot of lineups here tonight. But I think it's all about the Florida top line, especially if Tkachuk is there.
Yeah, and that will lower the ownership on the full line of Barkov and Verhaeghe. If it is Tkachuk and we don't know until 6:30, like it's going to be really hard to adjust to that because Tkachuk is 2,500 more than Reinhart on DraftKings. So that could be a nice little sneaky line. Just to keep in mind, on the blue line, Aaron Ekblad, 6,500, Brennan Montour, 6,600. I prefer Ekblad. You want to go to Gustav Forsling, I guess that's fine. I'd probably just find the extra 900 for Ekblad. Mark Stahl's been playing a ton of minutes. That's about as nice thing I could say for Mark Stahl. On the Columbus side, it's right back to Gabranson, I think, or Gavrikov, obviously.
Yeah, Gavrikov was the guy that I wrote up in that picks article today. Way more so on DraftKings and FanDuel because the DraftKings block bonus does matter. Florida, the shot happiest team in the league. They're 2.9 shots more per game than the next closest team. It's second place behind them. It's Florida and then Boston, I believe. Gavrikov's been playing a lot of minutes, obviously, with all the injuries. And these two teams played a few weeks ago, and Gavrikov had 7 blocks. So it's just, it's kind of a preview of what he can do here tonight. I really do like Gavrikov for 3,600.
Yep. No, you won't hear me complain about putting Gavrikov into the lineup. Dallas Stars 2.9 total heading into New Jersey. The Devils have a 3.5 total. Both these teams played yesterday, so it's probably going to be Scott Wedgwood and probably going to be Akira Schmid. Devils said the coach said that they're just going to blow up all their lines. We'll have to wait and see what that means because since they're on a back-to-back, no skate. Same for the Dallas Stars here. That could bring some interest to the Stars for me, depending on what these lines are. Now, if Tatar and Hischier together, that's going to, really mute my interest on Dallas 1. But if, it's something random, like Miles Wood, Nico Hischier, Jesper Bachquist, lines that we don't have samples on, I think taking a stab on Dallas 1 here would be perfectly fine. It's Akira Schmid, who, if everyone's healthy, he would be in the AHL. So we'll have to wait and see on the Devils lines. They have a 3.5 total with Wedgwood in net opposing him. So if there is a Devils line that I like, I do have interest in Devils. And depending on the Devils lines, that would make me have interest in Dallas 1.
Yeah. Dallas's top line per our top stacks tool coming in at 30, I think it was 35.8 points, which that's pretty good for a road total against a team that is arguably the best defensive team in the league. But like you said, Akira Schmid in net does make a difference in goal for them. And, Dallas has been on a bit of a slide, but, I was looking over their last 9 games. It's still 3.1 expected goals for per 60, 4.1 actual goals for per 60. I think the big problem has been coming on the penalty kill, or on the power play, which has still been good, but not the way it was over the first month plus of the season or whatever. A lot of it is shooting percentage related, but that was going to happen because the power play was shooting 26% or something through the first 4 or 5 weeks. It's been down to 10% over the last few weeks. So not necessarily a great power play spot for them, but considering their ownership, as you mentioned, coming in about 3 or 4% owned, I really do like Dallas here. I think they're one of those pivots that you can use to get away from Toronto 1. If you don't want to play a super high owned Toronto 1, you use a Dallas or a Colorado or a Florida that we just talked about. No problem using Dallas here. Wouldn't go to any of the Dallas depth lines. Dellandrea played 14 minutes last night. I think the line can be good, but I would just rather go to Dallas 1. Get the lines that have been playing together and playing a lot better all season long. On the New Jersey side, we just don't know what to really offer, right? Because we don't know what the lines are going to be, considering the coach said they're going to blow them up. As long as Bratt is playing with one of Hischier or Hughes, whatever line they have is probably the line I'll have the most interest in. But I will say that Dallas does take a lot of penalties, 3.7 times shorthanded per game. So I think it might be a case again, like last night, where I would do a double center, like Hischier and Hughes plus Tatar or plus Mercer or plus, I don't think you'd slide in Brad. He's just not shooting enough, but definitely, somebody like Mercer. So we'll see what the lines look like. I think New Jersey double center would be my recommendation regardless, but it is Dallas one that I kind of like most here in this game.
What if your buddy Alexander Holtz moves up into the top 6?
It's not going to happen. They'll send him back to the AHL before he goes to the top 6.
That's true. Lindy Ruff, the woe for young. On the blue lines here, I think Dougie's fine. Like 6,100 is fine. If he was like 7,400, I'd say that's too expensive. But this is a pretty good power play spot, so 6,100 is fine. Ryan Graves, I guess you got to start talking about Jonas Siegenthaler for DFS because he has been shooting the puck a bit more. So Graves or Siegenthaler. On the Dallas side, probably just going back to Esa Lindell.
Yeah, one guy I'll mention is one of the min punts I do like today, and that's Damon Severson. The problem with him earlier this year was that he was playing like 15, 16 minutes a game. He's been closer to like 19 minutes over the last few games. As long as he's playing 19 minutes with power play 2 time at stone min price, like he's one of the punts I do like today.
Yep, no argument for me. If you are a new user to Stokastic and you've never had a membership, you can get a 3-day risk-free trial. The most important point, again, is you click the link in the description. It'll take you to where you need to go. You get full access to everything NHL. You'll get the top stacks, which we show on the show a bunch. You'll get the lineup builder, which is amazing. It has, the lines, the projections, the price, the ownership. Cliffy has it up on the screen there for a second there. There's the lineup builder. It's probably the best tool that we have. It's awesome. You get, projections, ownership, rankings, which everything you get in the lineup builder that we just mentioned. You also get to join our Discord, which is invaluable. Saved me so many times with some scratches before lock. So yeah, click the link in the description, sign up for your 3-day risk-free trial. Carolina Hurricanes, 3.3 total. Heading into Detroit, the Wings have a 2.7 total. Pyotr Kochetkov, probable for the Hurricanes. Ville Husso, confirmed for the Red Wings. 3.3 road total for the Hurricanes. Paul Stastny, top line center, 2022. Make it make sense, man. I just don't have much interest in stacking anything for the Hurricanes with Aho out. It's just a mess. I guess like a one-off Svechnikov is fine. A one-off Teravainen at 3,600 on the top power play is fine. Like there just isn't much, but like the total is nice. So like there has to be stuff to like here. On the wing side, like again, another team with lines that are just pretty miserable right now. Maybe some Larkin Perron, but that's really about it.
We were talking in our Discord, and I was just wondering aloud, what game is going to screw me tonight? It feels like it's going to be Carolina, Detroit. 100%. Because what I mentioned in the picks article, because I do like Ville Husso as a goalie, what I mentioned in the picks article is Sebastian Aho has more points than every other Carolina center combined, like Kotkaniemi and Stahl and Stastny and Stepan. He's obviously a pretty big engine for them. We've talked before about Kotkaniemi's struggles this year. Played, I think, 18 minutes in the last game. He's just not driving the play at all. Still playing well defensively, but there's just been nothing there offensively. And yet, despite that, their implied goal total is only 0.1 goals lower than Los Angeles, which really, really surprised me. But obviously they're expecting goals here. Like Svechnikov and Natchez weren't awful playing with Kotkaniemi. 2.6 expected goals for. I think that's about league average. 3 actual goals for. That's fine. But that's not like great production or anything like that, right? And the Detroit penalty kill has been on a little bit of a slide of late. But without Aho, how good is the Carolina top power play going to be? Like they're by shot attempt impact this season. He's been their best power play forward. And, you're going to replace him with, Teravainen. I guess it's fine, but it just feels like I'm with you. It feels like I'm missing something here, that with no Aho, they still have a 3.3 total, which is 0.1 goals lower than Los Angeles, 0.1 goals lower than Edmonton. Not that far behind Washington, who are visiting Chicago. It's not like Detroit's an awful team. I don't think they're very good, but they're not a Chicago or something like that. So yeah, I'm with you, where I think like a one-off Svechnikov probably makes a lot of sense. Even a one-off Seth Jarvis or something like that. I don't know if I'd full stack anything, because it feels like these are lines that are not going to stay together, especially where they said, they're going 11 forward, 7 defensemen. It feels like these lines aren't going to stay together all game. I would just take the wingers that are probably going to play a lot, and it's guys like Svechnikov, guys like Natchez, guys like Teravainen. On the Detroit side, like, if anything, it's to that Perron, Larkin, Raymond line, right? They've been fine, if a little bit leaky defensively. 3 expected goals, 4 per 60 minutes in their time. Over 60 shot attempts in their minutes together. Larkin is shooting the puck. With no Aho, it does get rid of one of Carolina's best penalty killers. And, Carolina's penalty kill has definitely not been bad this year, but it's certainly not the penalty kill it was last year. So I don't think I'll get to Detroit. It just feels like I don't want to say a trap game, because I don't really like that term, but it just feels like a weird game to me. I think if anything, it's just one-offing some of the wingers from the Carolina side.
Yeah, and the weird thing about Carolina early in the night, throughout the day, Carolina opened at 3.1 and they went up to a 3.3. It's not like they were at 3.3 and went down. Like, their total's been going up. And I feel like I'm missing something. I feel like I'm losing my mind. And I maybe because it's 11-7, but like if the Hurricanes had a competent replacement for Aho on that top line, then yeah, I get it. But Paul Stastny, yeah, he hasn't been like an offensive top center since the 70s.
It's like just give me an Alex Wenberg. I would take an Alex Wenberg at this point. You know what I mean?
Yeah, give me Alex Wenberg, and I'd be in on Svechnikov, Wenberg, Natchez, and Jake is all excited. I saw his desk just raised 3 inches, and he's not even on the screen. But like Paul Stastny, Jesperi Kotkaniemi, Jordan Staal, Derek Stepan, like all those guys should be the 4th line center.
Hey, anyway. I'd say Stahl's pretty good. Like, the problem is Stahl and Kotkaniemi are kind of the same player, and Stahl's just way better at everything else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
their offensive upside is limited. But anyway, It's enough about ranting about the Hurricanes. On the blue line, if they're going to go 7 defensemen, the only one I really have interest in is probably Bretton Burns, just because he's going to play a ton of minutes. On the Detroit side, Philip Hronik is fine. Jake Wallman, 2,700, up onto that second pair, also fine.
Yeah, Hronik's kind of the guy that stood out a little bit to me. For this reason, is the Detroit power play has actually been better with Hronik than with Cedar this year. So I don't mind Hronik at 4,800, honestly. But yeah, obligatory Jake Wallman mentioned. But other than that, not a lot of interest in the Blue Liners.
Yeah, let's get to a game that feels really important, and there is not much ownership on it. And it's another one of those things where I'm just confused. I'm just confused a lot today. Maybe I'm just in a fog. I don't know. I feel like I need to talk to somebody, so I'm going to talk to Cliffy about it. Edmonton Oilers with a 3.4 total. Heading into Nashville, the Predators have a 3.1. Both of these teams played yesterday, so it's going to be Jack Campbell. It's going to be Kevin Lankinen. McDavid, 7% against one of the worst penalty kills and not UC Saros. What? And then you look on the other side, 3-4% for a Nashville top line against Jack Campbell. What? Make it make sense for me, Cliffy.
Yeah, I'm not going to be able to make it make sense. I think the 3.4 total from Edmonton actually makes sense a little bit, because it's basically like expecting 3 goals from the top line and 0.4 from the rest of the lineup. So that's kind of the way that I look at it. Yeah, the Nashville penalty kill, like, they're kind of limiting chances a little bit, but the goaltending's kind of let them down. Like, Saros really hasn't been that great this year. Lankinen's actually been pretty good, but it's only been 6 starts. Like, you don't want to rely on 6 starts for a guy that's been kind of traveling around the league. So, it is a downgrade in net, not necessarily with the way they played this year, but again, Lankinen's only played 6 games. It is a pretty good spot for the Edmonton top line, but they still are ridiculously expensive. 24,900 is a lot. There are cheap lines across the slate that you can go to. I think somebody in our chat was talking about Toronto 3, which, I think that's something that's fine to do, is to go attack a third line playing in a high total game. And, Toronto 3 is 7,700. So it is, if you use 2 of those guys, you can probably fill out a decent lineup just going with a duo stack. It's just one way to get Edmonton in. It is a pretty good matchup for the Edmonton top line. The Nashville top line so far this season, 2.7 expected goals against per 60 minutes, worse than league average. 4 goals against per 60 minutes. Obviously, that's worse than league average. I don't have a lot of faith in Lankinen, as a long term. He can play well in any single game, basically any goalie can. But I think it's an easier matchup than having Saros. Nashville's above average by penalties taken per game, so it is a reasonable power play spot for the Oilers as well. So I do like Edmonton 1 here. Like, I think I would probably rather play Edmonton than Boston, if that makes sense. So I do like Edmonton 1 here. If you want to get a little bit cheaper, one thing that I always say is that you can take out Zach Hyman and put in Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. Though I was looking at Leon Draisaitl's game logs. He has 1 shot in each game, and over his last 5 games, he has 5 shots in 5 games. But then I was looking over he's shooting over 20% over the last 5 years. The guy is just absolutely ridiculous. I do like Edmonton 1. On the flip side for Nashville, we'll talk about Roman Josi in a bit. When I talked about Roman Josi in the picks article, what I brought up, statistically speaking, Jack Campbell's been the worst goalie in the NHL in the calendar 2022. He's last by high danger save percentage, last by goal save above expected this season, or close to last, maybe second last. So, he's been absolutely terrible basically since Christmas of last year. It's a pretty good spot for Nashville, including on the power play. Edmonton does take a lot of penalties, 3.8 times shorthanded per game. So top line, very much in play. I think Duchesne, Granlund, and Forsberg. But I'm going to be honest, and we'll get to the defenseman here. If I'm going to play anything on the Nashville side, I think Roman Josi's by far my favorite thing on their side. I might be more tempted by like a Forsberg one-off or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd full stack Nashville top line, but I definitely don't mind one off Forsberg, one off Duchesne, 2-man Forsberg, Duchesne, and then adding in Josi. Let's get to that blue line. Roman Josi, 8,800. Wait, I'm out of adjectives to describe Roman Josi. So yeah, if you get him in, you get him in. This could be Avery's going. Yeah, so Roman Josi definitely in play for me. On the Edmonton side, this is a good spot for the power play, and you can add in Barry, I guess, at 4,900. I think I'd rather just play Darnell Nurse for $100 cheaper.
Yeah. What I wrote in that picks article, obviously Jack Campbell's been probably the worst goalie in calendar 2022. Edmonton is one of the most penalized teams in the NHL, and they're giving up the most shots per minute over the last month on the penalty kill. This seems like a prime spot for Roman Josi, who's averaging 21.2 DraftKings points over his last 19 games. Roman Josi is just straight up one of my favorite plays. Dante Fabro, if you need him in, Pun.
There you go, Haas. Vegas Golden Knights with a 2.8 total heading into Winnipeg. The Jets have a 3.2 total. Aiden Hill probable. Connor Hellebuck confirmed. Flowchart says this is a tougher matchup, so you probably should play him. They're not getting too much ownership here. I do like this spot, especially when it's Aiden Hill in net. I think he's a pretty good big downgrade from Logan Thompson. I like the Jets side here. The Knights side is okay. They'd probably be an MME filler for me.
I'm out on Vegas. No Jack Eichel, no Shea Theodore, no Alex Pietrangelo, no Zach Whitecloud. They're missing their top center. They're missing half their defensemen, including their 2 top offensive defensemen, I would say.
Yeah.
I'm just out on Vegas.
Trying to be nice, and you're just off the top rope with the diamond cutter or something.
Like, if anything, it would probably be Vegas 2. The Vegas top line really hasn't been that great there with Cotter. I don't think that's a big surprise to anybody. Vegas 2 is still putting up pretty good, like decent offensive numbers, and at least Marchessault shooting over 3 shots per game his last 5 games. So if anything, it'd be Vegas 2. But it's the Winnipeg side that interests me more. Like I said, no Eichel, no Theodore, no Pietrangelo, no Whitecloud. The line of Wheeler, Scheifele, and Perfidi, 125 minutes together, 3.4 expected goals for, 3.9 actual goals for. Wheeler has 19 shots in his last 5 games. I thought that guy was just dead offensively, but it seems like Scheifele and Perfidi have been able to kind of revive his offensive performance. They're going to get a lot of the Vegas second and third lines, which kind of sucks, I think, because you actually want them out against Vegas 1 with Stevenson and Cotter there. But it is what it is. It's not a bad power play matchup for Winnipeg either. The Vegas penalty kill has been on a little bit of a slide. I don't think that surprises anybody with all the injuries that they have on the blue line. Now, Vegas doesn't take a lot of penalties. Winnipeg doesn't draw a lot of power plays, but it is a good spot if they do actually ever get the man advantage. Both of the Winnipeg top lines are perfectly fine here. I just think that Perfidi, Scheifele, Wheeler are playing a little bit better, and I do like them in this matchup.
Yep, agreed there. Probably out on at least the skaters on Vegas. Like, there might be something on the blue line. Let's talk about it. Nick Hague up on the top pair at 3,200 is all right. Ben Hutton, mid and price, running the top power play, I guess is fine. Like, I'm a big Ben Hutton guy, but I don't know. I don't even know about in this spot. On the Jet side, Josh Morrissey for that power play at 6,200. Like, it seems so expensive for Josh Morrissey, but I guess he's been lucky, but he's also been, you have to be lucky to be good, I guess, or good to be lucky. I don't know, but 6,200 is fine. Brendan Dillon for some shot blocks is fine. Nate Schmidt, I guess, is all right as well.
Yeah. I think Braden McNabb might be the guy for me from this game. He's reasonably priced at 4K. He's averaging like 2.4 blocks per game. And considering he'll probably get more ice time tonight, obviously, with all those injuries, definitely in line for a block bonus. He's not a big volume shooter, but he's at like 1.5 shots per game, which is kind of fine. So, maybe you can get a block bonus and assist from him and a shot or, something like that. Get a little bit of everything across the board. I don't mind McNabb here. Probably the only guy that I'm really have a lot of interest in other than Hague. I think Hague's fine for his price, but honestly, I'd rather probably just find another $800 for McNabb.
Yep. Washington Capitals, 3.5 total heading into Chicago. The Blackhawks have a 2.5 total. Charlie Lindgren probable. Peter Mrazek confirmed. Sam Lafferty up on the top line with Max Domi and Patrick Kane, and still almost have a 30-point projection. Wild. It's wild. Like, this is actually a pretty good power play spot on both sides here. I obviously prefer the Capitals power play side here, and they're not getting much ownership. Alex Ovechkin, I think, has empty net goals in the last 5 games.
It's at least 3, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
So, including 2 in one game.
Yeah. So, like, he's coming in at 6.6% projected right now, even if that's like 8-9%. Like, how I talked about not one-offing Matthews. I think one-offing Ovechkin is perfectly fine, but I think, power play stacking on either side. Obviously, Capitals are preferred and would be in consideration in 1 to 3. Blackhawks power play stuff would be in consideration for MME.
Yeah. It's obviously the Washington side that I like here. Like, I have no interest in the Chicago side. The Washington penalty kill, like, you're right. Like, they did struggle through like the first month of the season. The last month, they've actually been really, really good. Chicago just doesn't generate anything. So, like, I'm just out on the Blackhawks. Washington top line, Ovechkin, Strome, Sheary. We keep talking about it. It's like, when are they going to finally start scoring? Their last 100 minutes together at 5-on-5, 3.9 expected goals per 60 minutes, 1.3 actual goals. They're shooting 3%. Once that starts regressing in a positive manner, they're really going to start filling the net. They're not coming in with much ownership. You get 2 out of the 3 guys on the top power play unit. Chicago's power plays or penalty kills obviously not very good. It's Ovechkin, Strome, Sheary that I like here. If you want to take Sheary off, put on Kuznetsov or put on Oshie or something like that, make it more of a power play stack, I think that's perfectly fine. As I brought up on the last show, power play's been a lot better since Oshie returned. So it is the power play guys I like the most, but it's the Washington top line. They're going to get matched up against Kurashev, Taves, Radish. That line is sitting at 3.6 expected goals against per 60 minutes this year, under a 40% expected goal share. Washington's top line should be able to run them over, and obviously it's a good power play spot. So Washington won, but like I said, if you want to take out Sheary and put in one of like Kuznetsov or Oshie or something, I think that's perfectly fine.
Yep, let's move to the blue line. I like John Carlson, 7,200. Especially if you're doing Washington stuff. Nick Jensen, all right. Now that Orlov's back, Orlov at 4K is a bit expensive for him. On the Hawks side, Connor Murphy for shot blocks. That's about it.
Yeah, Murphy on DK is perfectly fine. John Carlson is one of those expensive defensemen that I do like here today. We talked earlier about expensive D-men on this slate. It is Carlson. Like Carlson and Yossi are kind of the two guys that I'm really looking at on this slate. So Carlson on the Washington side, I would do like Murphy on the Chicago side, like you said, for blocks. And I think Seth Jones on FanDuel is fine. I think he's like 5,400, which is perfectly fine. Like if they're going to do anything, he's probably going to be involved in it. So I don't mind him on FanDuel. I think he's a little overpriced on DraftKings. So,
yep. Philadelphia Flyers with a 2.4 total heading into Colorado. The Avalanche have a 3.5. Felix Sandstrom, Pavel Francouz confirmed. That I now have more interest in the Colorado top line, which is Lehkonen, Rantanen, Nichushkin. Like, okay, even when McKinnon comes back, I think we're both on the same page here. If I throw this out there, Mikko Rantanen should be the 2C even when McKinnon comes back. So I don't think Rantanen's out of place here. He has good line mates with Lehkonen and Nichushkin. They're on the top power play. They're not getting too much ownership here. They're going to get a backup in the Flyers. Flyers are a team, so many injuries. They're not very good defensively. So I really like Colorado 1 here tonight.
Yeah, I was just looking at Sandstrom's game log. 7 starts this year. He's allowed at least 4 goals in 4 of them. Don't really like this spot for him. I think they're kind of throwing him to the wolves. I wrote up Colorado 1 in the picks article again. I'll bring that up real quick over at Stokastic.com. Free to read for everybody. I wrote up Colorado 1. The reason I wrote them up, even without Nathan McKinnon, is I was looking at Rantanen and Nichushkin's numbers with any center over the last 2 years besides Nathan McKinnon and Nazem Kadri, and they've still been really, really good. About 3.5 expected goals for per 60 minutes, roughly the same actual goals for. The Philadelphia top line in a small sample has been better defensively with Travis Konechny and Noah Cates there, but Hayes and Konechny have a pretty long sample of not being good defensively together. So that's kind of what I would buy into. Like I've said before, when Lehkonen was healthy, I think if you want to make this stack cheaper, you can take Lehkonen off and put Comfort on. Save yourself nearly $3,000 on DraftKings. Go with the double center. I think that's perfectly acceptable here, where the Flyers penalty kill has really struggled, especially with their goalies. I'd like to have Nathan McKinnon back in that lineup, but that Colorado top line looks like one of those spots that I would go to if you really want to get away from the heavy Toronto ownership that we're expecting here tonight. Nothing on the Flyers side. I didn't think that really needed to be said, but
yeah, like I'm out on the Flyers too. There's just nothing there. Let's move to the blue line. I think Cal McCarr is in a really good spot here. 7,300. I probably prefer Carlson and Yossi, but McCarr up there as well. Devin Tays down to 4,700. I guess that's fine. He needs to start shooting the puck more, I guess. Sham Girard, 3,100, fine. On the Flyer side, Cam York, 2,600 on the top power play. People maybe will play him, but I don't know. This not the best spot. And the other guys are just too expensive.
Devin Taves, do you mean Colorado Mackenzie Weegar?
Yeah.
Because Devin Taves really hasn't been doing a whole lot so far this season. Like, his price is fine. The matchup is good. I don't have a problem playing with him, but I agree with you. I'd probably, I think obviously the price reflects that you'd rather play Makar, but I think this is a spot where I'd probably play Makar. Yeah, Yam Cork back in the lineup for Philly in the last game, played a lot of minutes on the top power play. He's one of those, he's not min price, but he's very near min price. I do like him. It's not like Colorado's penalty kills not been super elite. They've been saved by their goaltending a little bit. So, you have Hayes, you have Konechny, you have JVR, you have all those guys back. So don't mind Yam Cork for 2,600 here tonight. Probably the only guy that I really want to play on the Flyer side.
Yep. Let's move on to the last game of the night where the total keeps on rising on both sides. Arizona Coyotes with a 2.8 total heading into San Jose. The Sharks have a 3.6 total. That was at 3.2 this morning. Karel Vejmelka probable. James Reimer confirmed. I always like the Sharks top line, but I like them more when they're not getting double-digit ownership projected. And tonight is one of those nights. I think you can go there. I think you can leave off a bank, add in, the Couture, Barabanov for some power play. On the Coyotes side, I think there is some stuff that you have to consider. Their total's going up. James Reimer is back after an injury. I think it would probably be that top line.
Yeah, San Jose won, like you said, not coming in with much ownership, 6 to 7% on DraftKings. I worry that one thing I always think about is when you see a total get steamed in Vegas, does that mean there's going to be more ownership than we expect in DFS? That's one of the things I always think about. So maybe they come in closer to like 10% owned or something like that, but it's still perfectly fine. Like, this is a tremendous power play spot for the Sharks. Arizona's at 4.3 times shorthanded per game. Now, San Jose typically doesn't draw a lot of penalties, but this seems like a game where they actually could. And the penalty kill for Arizona has been on a little bit of a slide of late. I wrote up Tomas Hertl, in the picks article. He's been shooting the puck a lot more lately, which was something that he wasn't doing earlier in the season. So at least a two-man of Meyer and Hertl, full stack to top line is perfectly fine. Same thing here as, some other spots. Like you said, if you want to leave off the bank and put on Couture or put on Barabanov or something like that, I think that's perfectly acceptable. But I really do like that Sharks top line. Prepared to get short tonight, man. That's just kind of the way it goes. 10:30 start, might be up till 2:30 in the morning. It's 11:30 start here. So it might be up till 2:30 in the morning watching the Sharks, but it is a stack that I really do like. It's up there with, the Tampa one that I talked about earlier, the sub 20K stacks that I like. On the Arizona side, if people want to go back to the top line after that Clayton Keller hat trick in their last game, it's perfectly fine. It's Lawson Krause that I have more interest in. He shoots the puck a reasonable amount, gets decent ice time. That second line for the Sharks has been kind of bad defensively at times this year. So if anything, it'd be like a one-off Lawson Krause, but it's the Sharks top line, obviously, that I really like here.
Yeah, it's so funny because we're always like, 10:30, 11:30 start. We'll just put the guys in and go to bed. And we're always up at 2 a.m. going, why did we do this?
Yeah.
Here we are. But yeah, that is the 12 gamer here. Who you like in net? There's a lot of options tonight.
Yeah, I wrote up Ville Husso because I think Carolina's really in danger. This really feels like I'm tempting fate here, but I think that, there's a reasonable chance to get shut out without Aho in the lineup. Obviously, Connor Hellebuck has a very reasonable price for Winnipeg here tonight. Just 7,800 over on DraftKings against an Eichel, Pietrangelo, Theodorelis Golden Knights team. So I do like Hellebuck again as well. I did like Georgiev, but it is Francouz starting. I think Francouz is fine if you want to pay up a little bit in goal as well. I'll mention, obviously, Ilya Samsonov on FanDuel. He's priced at 6,500 on FD. I imagine he'll carry a ton of ownership here tonight, but you got to mention him for his price if you're playing on FanDuel.
Yeah, the only one I'll add is if it's Phoenix Copley, it's not great, but 7,600 I think is okay. I think that's a winnable matchup. If you're really looking to ride some roller coasters tonight, John Gibson at 7K could be Could be a lot of fun.
He went into Boston earlier this year and saved 35 of 36, and I think it was a shootout loss. So
yeah,
it can be done. It can be done.
Yeah, I'm not expecting that from him,
No,
but
I am not either.
I do think there's if he doesn't get yanked in the first period on giving up like 6 goals on 12 shots, I think there's a fair chance that he sees the save bonus on DK.
Yeah, I agree.
Who you liking as your hat trick pick?
I'm gonna go away from all those super high total games, and I'm gonna take a little gamble tonight on Mark Scheifele.
I'm gonna, because our year-end review is coming up. I don't even know if that's a real thing.
I don't
but
think so.
Yeah, it's not. But Roman Josi.
Here we go. Roman Josi. All right. Well, yeah, Jake's gonna put an extra tick in your performance review box for sure after that one.
Yeah, it's going to be pink. For Slim Cliffy, I am Josh Harris. We'll be back on Thursday, a rare day off tomorrow. Enjoy that. We'll see you on Thursday. Good luck, everybody. Hopefully we navigated this slate for you, and we'll see you in Discord.
Good luck, everyone.